Welcome back. Our next conversation is one that is, shaking Nigeria's media landscape, and it calls for an immediate removal of the Cybercrime Act by the Nigerian Guild of Editors and SERAP. Now, these organizations argue that despite amendments, the law continues to be weaponized against journalists, activists, and everyday citizens expressing their views. Now, how do we prevent such laws from being used to suppress the media, which is the fourth estate of the realm? Joining us for this discussion is a constitutional lawyer who is here with us once again to take a look at this conversation. And of course, we would expand the conversation to many more. But let's also tell you that Section 24 controversy, that's another thing we'll look at, where critics say this section remains vague and open to abuse, allowing authorities to criminalize online speech, including private conversations, and so much more. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining us as well. It's a broad conversation. We'll take a look at this, and then we'll also like to touch on some other aspects as well of what's been happening, especially here in Nigeria. But I just mentioned the section, and being broad, being opened, the conversations could lead to one being arrested, one being held in court, one being taken for one reason or the other, and so on and so forth. Journalists we've seen, especially in this administration, have been arrested, they've been picked up. There's also the case of Very Dark Man, VDM, of course, who makes a popular name amongst the youths these days. And then you also have the case of activists. We do recall what happened to a very popular senior colleague of yours as well, who was picked from Lagos and taken to another state. How do we handle this situation now? As a country, what do you think needs to be done quickly, looking at what SERAP has said as well?
Well, let's even go to the background. The reason sedition was actually abolished from our laws was because of the fact that it contravenes the Constitution. It contravenes Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution that enumerates the fundamental rights of Nigerians. So it was abolished. Then what we had left was defamation, slander, libel, which is civil, okay? So we should have left it at that. But in 2015, we all were already there when the internet and, in fact, today, over 60% of us have moved online. More people are more online than they are offline. Okay, so we have carried all our idiosyncrasies online. What it therefore means that there will be infractions, legal infractions there. So that's what necessitated the Cybercrime Act 2015. Now, Section 24 is so expansive, it's so open to so many interpretations, especially by law enforcement agencies that are not properly groomed in the law and are not believe that anything you say without criticism against anybody in authority is an offense. So calling for the repeal or removal of that law is not the direct answer to the question. Because there are those who are actually online genuinely damaging brands with falsehoods. You understand? There are those assassinating characters online, doing all that. So those are offenses. But what we can do is to educate the public and the law enforcement agency as to what constitutes an offense under the Cybercrime Act. Because we cannot go back to where we're coming from, just take it down, and then we're left with slander and libel, which is civil. Okay, we cannot maintain that, given the dynamic nature of society. Society has grown. I mean, there are a lot of things going on online.
And the laws have to evolve.
Yes, the laws have to evolve, but it should not be left in the hands of illiterate policemen. Those who have agendas, those who, when they are paid, they just go and pick up someone, okay? Those who do not understand the import of the law. The import of that law is when you say those things and they turn out to be false, that is when you have an infraction. Not when it's a fair comment, not when it's the truth, not when it's actually what is going on. Do you understand? But the bend to it is that before that is ascertained, you have been arrested already. Because you need to go to court to prove that you are not maligning anyone. You are saying the facts, and you have evidence to that effect. But before then, you would have suffered detention, you would have suffered humiliation, they would have picked you on a Friday. So that you don't get out until Monday.
Yeah, just like Williams.
So that's what I'm saying. So in order to guard against that, the law enforcement agencies, they need to be informed that Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution is very valid. Okay, and if they're not going to adhere to the provisions of the rights of Nigerians as enshrined in that Chapter 4 of the Constitution, then it will be better to remove this law. If the law enforcement agency will not be schooled in that Chapter 4 of the Constitution that defines human rights, Section 36, 38, 39 of them, you are all in that constitutional safeguards. And those constitutional safeguards are much more important than the Cybercrime Act. The Constitution is supreme, and this provision shall have a binding force on all persons and authority throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay? So any other law that is inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution, this Constitution shall prevail, and that other law, to the extent of its inconsistency, shall be void. So if you have some issues in society and the law came as a result of that, just like the Cybercrime Act, and that law, its interpretation is being used against the provision of the Constitution, that law has to go.
So what we're saying, in essence, are we saying that this Cybercrime Act, that it's the implementation that is the challenge, or would you say it's flawed from the start?
Wording.
Yes, it is not flawed from the word. If you look at it, the intention is whoever uses an electronic device, the phone, internet, or whatsoever, okay, to share falsehood, okay, to malign people, to assassinate people's character, to do all sorts, to reduce people's reputation in the eyes of the right-thinking members of society, to do all sorts wrong, is an offense, and there are penalties to it, okay? But what our law enforcement agencies are doing today, they are not asking whether it's false or true.
They pick you up.
They just pick you up. That's what I'm saying. And
so
it is wrong.
Where is the loophole that allows them to just pick people up?
The loophole there is that whoever uses the internet, the social media, whatever it is, all that.
Which is everybody.
Yes, which is everybody. To say anything against government. Once you say anything against the government, and because the government is also fueling it, they just go and pick you up.
So how do we then find that balance between ensuring that we're protecting freedom of speech in a country that is a democratic country like ours, and ensuring that we do not encourage cybercrime?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We must educate the law enforcement agencies, and our politicians should help us on this. You see, because the politicians have almost destroyed this country. Whatever is left of this country is by grace. They destroyed everything. The politicians are the one orchestrating this arrest here and there. Yes, because first, they don't want to manage the country proper. And then people are forced to talk. And when they talk, you come against them. Nigerians don't talk. Nigerians don't even criticize government as as a citizen of the United States we do to the government. Because
very true.
Yes,
I mean with refugees.
It's in the amendment.
Comedy.
They would. Yeah, even the average person on the street will tell you the amendment is relying on to say what it's saying. Okay, you know the steps and all that.
That informed of the law. Yeah.
Yes. So we need to be informed of the law. That every Nigerian should study law, whether they are going to practice or not. It just makes society orderly. When you know exactly, when the police knows where his rights starts and end, you know where yours starts and end. Everyone is aware of the law.
Your suggestion, though, looks like a tall order, looking at the reputation of the Nigerian police and how that institution is run, by saying the police should check itself and educate itself on this law so they won't be used arbitrarily when there's also economic sort of benefits to them being used, because they get mobilization by some of those politicians to pick people. So beyond the police self-regulating,
is there no way we can go back and amend this law and check it from its source? And also, does the judiciary bear in either reinforcing or challenging the misuse of laws like the Cybercrime Act to suppress dissent?
Yeah. What are you going to amend in that chapter 24? Because if you look at it, it actually states what constitutes an infraction. Yeah, what constitutes an infraction under a civil suit, usually. Slander, libel. They just pulled it out by saying if you use an online platform to do the same
Why
thing.
was it different when it was before it became cyber?
It was different because it's civil. Civil, you sue and ask for compensation. Now, if you slander me or you write anything about me or whatever it is that is untoward, that brings stigma to me, that reduces my reputation in the eyes of the right-thinking members of society, I will sue you as a person. And then I'll go to court to ventilate with evidence and ask for compensation. If I get judgment, you pay. Okay, if you don't pay, you go to prison. Because then an action will be filed against you to come and show cause. If you're not able to do that, an action will be filed to commit you to prison. Okay? But in this case, when you make it criminal, it is now the state prosecuting. So police now will come after you. Okay? So, and when you do that, it has been stated that, the Cybercrime Act have made a provision where individuals now use the state apparatus to pick people up who offend them, and taxpayers' money is being used to, during the case of Delefarotimi and so it is wrong for you to have such. So they shouldn't just pick people anyhow. They must come within the confines of what truly, because unless you are saying we should go and abrogate Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution, and that cannot be done, because if you do that, you have killed humanity. These are inalienable rights that are given to humanity by God. So those rights cannot be taken away. Okay, the right to freedom of expression, the right to state exactly what you feel about a situation. Nobody should be arrested or picked up because he's now using an online platform, okay, to say those things and to make those allegations. It's wrong for us to have that.
So how do you presume that this calls by SERAP, would go on? Because NGE and SERAP are asking for the laws to be repealed or removed. So how would you foresee this turning out? And if you were to advise, what advice would you give to NGE and SERAP?
No, there's no way you can remove the law. You can only look for a way to amend it, because see, society is dynamic. Okay. So are you saying that there should be no Cybercrime Act again? What will not happen? Even under the watch of the states and all that, people have you been bullied online before? Some people go commit suicide.
Yeah.
Some people just slip into clinical depression just because they are bullied. They use negative languages against them. It gets at them. People have different temperaments and all that. So you are always going to have people committing offense. Okay, but that should not be misinterpreted. Some person should not be somewhere, should not be paid then to go pick up people randomly and start to, deal with them. You don't take them to court. Okay, the young guy that was picked up, even I'm not a fan of his, has been there since Friday. Today is Monday. Okay, has he been charged? Have they released any statement? No, nothing like that.
I guess by today, we should be able to know, because I don't know that any court was sitting over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, no court will see, definitely. But the law is that you are supposed to take him to. That same day he was picked up in the morning. So if you have a court within 40 kilometers radius, you are supposed to charge him. Okay, why keep him over the weekend? Just because you want to rely on the time to put him through more pressure. So by today, he should be charged to court or released unconditionally. That is the law. So they cannot tell us that they are arresting people to enforce the law, and then they'll start to break the law to enforce the law. It's wrong. We don't break the law to enforce the law. So the police, whoever EFCC that arrested whoever must come within the confines of the law to have people charged to court accordingly.
So, but this scenario that you paint about people being picked up and arrested indiscriminately and not brought before a court of competent jurisdiction within the time frame is not a scenario that is new to us. We're only just hearing
but it's still
more.
wrong.
Yes, I know. I'm trying to drive at a point. Why I say it's not a scenario that is new to us is because we've had several scenarios happen like this in the course of the past few years. We're only hearing more about it now with the advent of social media and the fact that there are more people who are into online content creation, and social media has created a platform for everyone to have a voice. So if you say that law enforcement agents are educated, they haven't been educated all this while. Do you have any faith that really there's anything that can be done to ensure that there is a change? Because if pre-social media era this was a challenge, now that social media is a widely used, it is still a challenge. Is there really any hope for us to be able to find that balance where you know that if they're arresting, they are following due process to make their arrest?
There is hope. The law enforcement agents that fail to abide by what the law says, they should be sanctioned. You know, by the time you begin to dismiss them from the force, you understand? They will begin to abide by the provisions of law. It's because there are no consequences, okay? So even today, as I speak to you today, unlike before, when we take police to court, we get judgment against police, we're able to go to court because we're able to, because they will not want to pay when we get judgment against them. So we'll go and garnish their account, because then you could trace police account and garnish whatever it is as your judgment.
Can you explain in layman's terms what it means?
Now, what I mean is before Buhari's regime, we have clients that police have maltreated. Many of the law enforcement will go to court. When we go to court, most of the times we get judgment against the police. Okay, and the court makes an order that the police pay, you know, the judgment creditor.
Yes.
That's the person who got judgment. Police, being a judgment debtor, will not want to pay. In those days, we have the accounts of Nigerian police. We have the accounts. So what you do is you go back to court and file an action to garnish, to take the judgment sum from police account. Then the court will make an order against the bank, asking the bank to transfer whatever is in the police account to the judgment creditor, the one who got judgment against the police. Okay? That's before Buhari regime. Then
what changed?
Now what changes is they came up with the TSA. You understand? Wherein when you want to, you cannot access.
There's a central person.
Yeah, you can't even access any of the public services. You can't access the account. They have to go and generate remitter. That remitter, the number there, represents that particular payment, and you don't know the account is going to. So you don't have a central pool any longer. So today, when you commence an action against police, and you get judgment, you get everything, police will not pay. When you want to go to garnish the police account, there's no account to garnish. There was a case I did. The only account was the community bank account when we were supposed to garnish, and at the end of the day, we discovered there was 6 naira that was there.
Oh dear.
We were going to garnish over 10 million.
Wow.
So
Yes.
6 naira.
And it's a community bank. Okay. That's the only one that is visible right now. There's no other one that is visible for anybody to garnish any amount. So the judgment creditors will now be complaining that they have judgments with them. They cannot enforce their judgment. They cannot reap the fruit of their judgment. That is what it is. So that should have been
of impunity.
Yes, because that should have been a penalty working against the police. Okay, in which case, when that money is taken down, those who are involved in that action will be selected, and that money will be removed from their salary. So if you do that consistently, they will not, they will not want to take the risk of, abusing the law or making a mess of the
there are consequences.
Yeah, today there's no consequence. There's no consequence. Even the ones that, the ones that kill people, shoot people, sometimes we don't hear about the cases again.
Yeah, it goes.
Yeah, so they have orderly trial, then the next thing, they dismiss them, they prosecute them, and they don't really know what happens thereafter, whether they are truly convicted or not.
We are pointing hands at law enforcement agents, but don't the courts also and the judiciary have a role to play in this? Because they will bring this case eventually before a court of competent jurisdiction. Is there a role that the judiciary has to play in all of this?
Yes, now the role the judiciary has to play is to look at the case, whether there's an abuse, whether or not. And the judiciary, we've had a lot of judgment delivered against police and the rest of even the EFCC. In fact, the EFCC they lose over 80% of all the cases they file. Yeah, because of the way they go about prosecution and because of this
media trial.
Yeah, this media trial and then this lack of tact. You know, not too long ago, some months ago, someone resorted to self-help in Port Harcourt and shot one of them because they came at an odd hour.
About that story.
Yes.
Jumped into
yeah, and then somebody had to. So I don't know the kind of training they have or they give them, but Nigeria is a civil society. Forget about the insurgency. We're not at war. It's not a jungle. It's still a country with a constitution with the proper fragmentation of nationhood. Okay, it's still a country. It's even in Nigeria here that we think Nigeria is bad. When you travel, everyone wants to be like a Nigerian. Everyone wants to identify. Even when you are broke, you think you are broke. The people out there, they are saying you look at the dirty December that happened. I have Black American friends who came, who said they are coming back.
Yeah.
They will always come back that this is home. Even the ones that, if you look at their faces, you know that these could be from other countries. They all don't agree. They say they are Nigerians. I said, well, look at your photo, you look like you are from Kenya. They say, no, they are Nigerians.
I can imagine
that's where they came from.